What does it mean that the Temple Mount is in our hands? Does that mean that we actually now have to start building the temple?
Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Aaron Sokol, and you're watching Parsha Inspired. My guest today is Ephraim Palvanov. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have a question. In 1967, when Matagori, he yells out, "The Temple Mount is in our hand." And at that very moment, they established the Western Wall Heritage Foundation, and they said, Jews, you stay by the wall. And the Waqf was given ownership. Do you think that that was a fear of this fulfillment of prophecy?
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. Historically, in 1967, like you said, they took it, they gave it away, right? They just gave it up to the Jordanian, to the Waqf for nothing, basically. Motagur had ordered an Israeli flag to be put on the Dome of the Rock. It was put up, and then Moshe Dayan saw it with his binoculars and immediately ordered for it to be taken down, saying, do you want to set the Middle East on fire? So Moshe Dayan, who was secular, was scared of the potential repercussions from the Arab world. But the truth is probably nothing would have happened because Israel took it over fair and square. And the Arabs, basically Arab culture, Arab Muslim religion, it only understands strength. Okay? So like the Muslims, they're not allowed to make peace with the infidel unless the infidel is stronger. And so they make a temporary peace until they are strong enough to fight them up. Like the Muslim world Muslims see everything split. They divide up the world into the Dar al-Islam, the world of Islam. And if you're not in the world of Islam, you're the Dar al-Harb. You're in the world of war, of the sword. If you're not part of Islam, then we're going to fight you until you become Muslim. And they are only allowed to make peace with non-Muslims temporarily if they're not strong enough to defeat them. So any peace with Muslims is a temporary peace. Islam and the Arab world only understands strength. As long as you're stronger, they will be at peace with you. Once you're weak, they will destroy you because the ultimate goal of Islam is an international global caliphate to submit the whole world under Islam. That's what Islam literally means. Islam means submission. So when Israel capitulates to Arab demands, it's a sign of weakness. And the Arabs don't see that as, oh, we can make peace with these people, because their long-term goal is not to make peace with us. That's what a lot of the Western liberals don't understand. Islam does not allow to make peace with the infidel. At best, you get a temporary peace, at best. And that only happens if you're stronger. So every time we give something away, we capitulate, that's a win for them, and that only makes them stronger. It does not actually bring us peace. It's actually just makes us weaker, and that gives them the upper hand. And we have to be strong. That's the only way to maintain peace with them, not to give anything away. So when they gave away the Temple Mount, that was a huge disaster. At the 6-Day War, Israel was the dominant superpower in the Middle East. They could have kept the Temple Mount. Nobody would have said anything. So Moshe Dayan was worried about the repercussions, but he was completely wrong on that. Israel could have totally taken it. It was ours, fair and square. That's it. But they gave it up, I think, mainly out, like you suggested, out of cowardice. And the rabbinic authorities didn't help because I think a lot of the rabbis were scared of, what does it mean that the Temple Mount is in our hands? Does that mean that we actually now have to start building the temple? And better to avoid those questions and those halachic issues and that responsibility, let's just give it away and not have to deal with it. We'll just wait for Mashiach to come. That's been kind of like the hashkafa, the galut hashkafa never left. They came to Israel, but they brought their galut hashkafa into Israel. So better not deal with it. Put up a sign that says, oh, Allah says you're not allowed to go to the Temple Mount, which is a complete lie. That's not true. That sign that stands there when you try to go to the Temple Mount and supposedly says a warning that halachically you're not supposed to go up, that's a complete lie. It's not true. And so I think it was like a cop-out, both by the secular authorities who were scared of the repercussions from the Arab world, and from the religious authorities who were just scared of the responsibility of what does it mean that the Temple Mount is in our hands. So they just gave it up. And then they maintained this policy that you're not supposed to go up the Temple Mount. But halachically, you're definitely allowed to go up the Temple Mount. And okay, there might be certain places where you're not allowed to go because of the impurity. Okay, but you can definitely go like where they take you around on the tour around the perimeters. No problem to go there.
Historically, have people been going up, and has the fear of building the temple always been our biggest obstacle?
Yeah, historically, people have always gone. The Rambam writes about it. The Rambam, when he left, first he fled Spain, then Morocco, and he actually tried to live in Israel. Didn't work. Then he settled in Egypt, where he became world renowned. But before he settled in Egypt, he visited Israel. He talks about going to the Temple Mount. So definitely, the other travelers and rabbis have gone there. So people have always gone up the Temple Mount, for sure. And I think we need to go up the Temple Mount, because you were saying earlier that you've never gone. I think the importance of going up the Temple Mount is that we have to show that, like Arabait Be'yadeinu, we have to show that it's ours. If we don't show that we care about this place and that we believe that it's ours, if we just say, oh, like the Waqf can have it, they can administer it, then we're basically saying that it belongs to, we're essentially adding to their argument that it's theirs. If we truly believe that this is the center point of the cosmos, that this is the holiest point for the Jewish people, then we should be there. We should show that, no, this is our place and we are not ever going to give this up, and we need to be in charge of this place. And by the way, it's only if we're in charge of it that it can be an international house of prayer, like the prophet Ishayahu says, right? Isaiah chapter 56, Ishayahu says the third temple will be a Beit Tfilah lechol ha'amim. It'll be a house of prayer for the whole world. So we also have to change the narrative a little bit and explain to the world that the third temple is not for us. The third temple is for everybody. And so when some Christians and Muslims say, oh, they're trying to build this temple for their own rituals and whatever, they're going to get rid of the Dome of the Rock and all this stuff. That's not the point. What we want to create is an international house of prayer that will be good for everybody, a place where Christians and Muslims and everybody from around the world can come there. It's going to be a place of unity and peace, because right now the situation is that only Muslims are allowed to go there. So right now it's an apartheid situation, and the apartheid is being imposed by the Muslim authorities, where only Muslims are allowed to actually worship there and nobody else. I know things are getting a little bit better. Now there's certain Jewish prayers that are allowed there, but still you need like a police escort for it. I've been there. I've done it. I prayed Mincha and did Birkat Kohanim on the Temple Mount, but with a police escort. That's not how it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be an international house of prayer, an international house of peace, where we can all worship God together. So the Third Temple project is not a Jewish project. It's actually an international project that will benefit everybody. Because right now, only Muslims can do whatever they want over there. If we were to actually be in charge, everybody would be allowed to worship there. See what I mean? So it's beneficial for everybody, not just the Jews. It's important for the world, for the Jewish people to understand that, and for the world to understand that. Like Isaiah says, the Third Temple is a house of prayer for everybody. It's international.
So today the Jews return and they left the abominations on God's holy place.
Well, I mean, it was built by the Muslims, no question about that, but it's not a mosque. So some people misunderstand it. They think the Al-Aqsa Mosque is just next to it, right? Like kind of on the other end of the Temple Mount. Though the Dome of the Rock is not a mosque, and it was built to preserve the Temple of Solomon. I mean, they say there's an inscription inside that says it was specifically built over the site of the Temple of Solomon to preserve that place, because the Christians had previously used it, or the Byzantines had used it as like a dumping ground. It was like a garbage dump. And Nehemiah ben Hushiel in around 614 of the Common Era actually managed to expel the Byzantines, clear the Temple Mount, and that set the stage for the Muslims to conquer it a couple of decades later. And then they built the Dome of the Rock, partly to preserve the site of Solomon's temple. Although it had political overtones, because really it was a struggle among the Muslims, different dynasties, the Umayyads and others, whatever, that were fighting for control. And the leader at the time essentially needed a new capital for himself, because Mecca was not accessible. So he chose Jerusalem to be the new capital. That's when Muslims started talking about Jerusalem as Al-Aqsa and as a holy place. Until then, for sure, everybody understood that Al-Aqsa is not Jerusalem. It's somewhere in Saudi Arabia. And to this day,
mosque, right?
Exactly. And to this day, you have Muslim scholars who admit that Al-Aqsa is in what is today Saudi Arabia. It was only later that it was associated with Jerusalem for political reasons, to justify creating a new capital in Jerusalem. But originally, it was not holy to Muslims, and it was not identified as Al-Aqsa at all. Yeah, so that's a little bit of the history of the Dome of the Rock. It's interesting. I also spoke about, there is a prophecy in Daniel about a certain period of time. When the abomination is built on the Temple Mount, Daniel says there will be a certain amount of time, 1290 years, 1335 years, until the temple will be rebuilt. So if you look at when the Dome of the Rock was built around the year 690, again, question of when do you start counting from when it started to be built, from when it was finished. So if you add up the years, we get to like right now, where we are now. So that's one way of understanding Daniel's prophecy. If you count from the Dome of the Rock being completed somewhere around the year 700, and if you add the 1335 years of Daniel, about 1300 years later, we're right at the point where, if that's really what Daniel meant, so we might see the end of the abomination on the Temple Mount. There are different opinions as to where exactly the temple stood, and but the Gemara, Mishnah, and Gemara say that in the second temple, since there was no Ark of the Covenant, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, would bring the incense on Yom Kippur and place it on the rock, the Eben Hashtiyah. And so it seems like it really was where the Dome of the Rock is now, because there's no other major huge rock on the temple. This is the rock. That's always been the rock. So I think that is the one, the Eben Hashtiyah. Now, that doesn't mean that the Dome of the Rock itself actually has to be destroyed. I think it's important to preserve it as a cultural icon, and so, and let's say it's important to Muslims. So I don't think we have to have this approach where we have to destroy the Dome of the. I don't think that's the approach.
We could move it.
It can move it. You can definitely move it. It could be preserved. And again, according to those opinions, that where the temple might be a little bit off center, so it could be somewhere else. But even if it was right there on that, which I think it was, right where the rock is, again, the Dome of the Rock itself does not have to be destroyed. So it's another misconception. People think that Jews are trying to destroy the Dome of the Rock. They're going to blow it up or whatever. I don't think that's required at all. We should preserve it as an important kind of historical, cultural edifice, and it could certainly just be kind of moved over and again replaced with, or we can put an international house of prayer that would be special to everybody and not just one particular people, because this is the Holy Land for ultimately for everybody. And interestingly, also Jeremiah says in his prophecies, Yirmiyahu, that a day will come when the Christians, well, the Notzrim will say, let us go up to Zion together. And it says Notzrim, which in Jeremiah's time did not mean a Christian because they didn't exist yet. But prophetically, Notzrim became the term for Christians. So I think that's another prophecy coming true today, where you do have so much Christian support for this project, for temple, for Zionism, and so on. And I think that's also, going back to our first question, a fulfillment of prophecy, that there are Notzrim now who are saying, let us come and help the Jews, and let us go and ascend Zion and work towards ending the Galut and rebuilding the temple. So I think it's just another prophecy that's connected to the Temple Mount, to Zion, that we're seeing fulfilled right before our eyes today.
Thank you so much. Isaiah 55 that we read in synagogue this week ends, verse 5 ends with that we are Pe'ercha, we are God's crown, and 10 Gentiles will hang on the hem of the shirt of the Jew and say, Nelchem echem, let us go with you, ki shamanu Elokim imachem, we have heard that God is with you. Today the Jewish people have returned, half the Jews have returned to the land. The land once again is giving forth its fruit, like it says, Va'am pechem titein pri, the branch will give forth its fruit for the Jewish people, because they are sure to come.